The wolf bellowed a lion. Neither wolves had always belonged to the north. Long before the first Viking ships cut through the frozen seas, before the first kings built their halls of wood and stone, the wolves ruled the endless forests of Midgard. They moved like shadows between the ancient pine trees, silent hunters that knew every frozen valley and every hidden path beneath the snow. But the wolves gathering in the forests beyond Skarnfjord were not like the ones the hunters had known for generations. These wolves were larger, older, and something inside their eyes burned with an ancient fire that had not existed for centuries. Because they were not ordinary beasts. They carried the blood of something far older, the blood of Fenrir. For generations, the old stories had warned about Fenrir's bloodline. When the great wolf Fenrir was chained by the gods, it was said that some of his offspring escaped into the northern wilderness, creatures born with a fragment of the ancient monster's power. Most people believed those stories were nothing more than legends told beside winter fires. But the North never truly forgets its monsters. And now, under the dark sky of the black aurora, the bloodline had awakened. In the forests beyond Skarnfjord, the wolves moved like a living shadow across the frozen ground. Dozens of them, then hundreds. Their fur was darker than midnight, and their bodies were larger than any wolf the hunters had ever seen. Their paws pressed deep into the snow, leaving massive tracks that looked more like the footprints of giants than animals. But it was their eyes that frightened the warriors most. They glowed faintly in the darkness, not yellow, not green, but deep crimson, eyes that belonged to something far older than wolves. Leif was among the first men to see them. He and 3 other hunters had ventured into the forest at dawn, hoping to track the strange animals that had been gathering near the village. The black aurora still stretched across the sky like a shadow over the world. Even in daylight, the sky felt darker than it should have. Leif knelt beside a massive paw print pressed deep into the snow. "This is no wolf," he said quietly. One of the hunters laughed nervously. "Everything is a wolf if it has teeth." Leif shook his head slowly. "This one walks like a giant." He placed his hand inside the frozen track. The print swallowed his hand completely. Then the forest became silent. No wind moved through the trees. No birds cried above the branches. Even the distant sound of the river had disappeared. Leif slowly stood. Between the dark trunks of the pine trees, shapes began to move. One wolf stepped into the open snow. Then another, then another. Within seconds, dozens of wolves had appeared from the forest, surrounding the hunters in a wide silent circle. But none of them attacked. They simply watched, waiting. Leif tightened his grip on his spear. The largest wolf stepped forward. It was enormous. Its shoulders nearly reached the chest of a grown man. Thick scars covered its dark fur, and frost clung to its long fangs as it breathed slowly into the cold air. Its crimson eyes locked onto Leif. For a moment, Leif felt something strange inside his chest. Not fear, recognition. The wolf tilted its head slightly, as if studying him, as if deciding something. Then it raised its head toward the sky, and it howled. But the sound that left its throat was not the cry of a normal animal. It was deeper, older, a sound that rolled across the frozen mountains like thunder. From every direction in the forest, the other wolves answered, hundreds of voices rising into the black sky. Back in the village of Skarnfjord, the warriors heard the howl echo across the valley. Men stepped outside their homes, gripping their axes and staring toward the dark forest. Even the old seer Huldrych emerged from his hall, leaning heavily on his staff. He listened to the chorus of wolves, and his face turned pale. "The bloodline has returned," he whispered. One of the warriors beside him frowned. "What bloodline?" Huldrich's voice trembled. "The sons of Fenrir, deep in the forest." The massive wolf continued staring at Leif. Snow swirled around them as the dark aurora pulsed above the world. The wolf stepped closer. Leif raised his spear, but something inside him told him not to strike. The wolf lowered its head slowly. Then it turned and began walking back into the forest. The rest of the wolves followed, hundreds of them disappearing between the trees like a living shadow. Within moments, the forest was empty again. Only the massive paw prints remained in the snow. But far deeper in the mountains, the wolves did not stop. They ran across frozen valleys and climbed icy cliffs where no normal animal could travel. They were moving toward something, toward the call that had awakened them, toward the black aurora burning across the sky. At the edge of a massive glacier, the pack finally stopped. The great wolf stood at the front of the gathering. Hundreds of crimson eyes stared toward the ancient ice wall. Then the glacier trembled. A deep rumble echoed through the frozen valley. Cracks spread slowly across the ancient ice. The wolves lowered their heads, not in fear, in reverence, because something beneath the glacier was waking. Something older than Fenrir himself. The massive wolf lifted its head toward the sky and howled once more. The blood of Fenrir had answered the call, the wolves had awakened, the bloodline had returned, and the North was no longer safe for men. If you enjoyed this Viking dark fantasy story, like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapter of Frozen Saga. New monsters, ancient legends, and forgotten gods are awakening across the frozen north. This saga is far from over.